Hey, what is up, Cinema Masters, and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be breaking down a commercial that I DP'd recently. This was directed by Jake McGee, who is one of our Cinema Masters and crew members. Jake is a phenomenal director, absolutely love working with him, and he graciously invited me to come and DP this project for him, which was always a blast working with Jake. So I'm going to jump into this. This was a passion project. We did, however, collaborate with the client on this, and so it was kind of a collaborative process, but being a passion project with limited gear, limited budget, limited talent, limited everything on passion projects, there's some interesting things that kind of happened here. Obviously, we're working a lot with natural light and then augmenting that natural light with simple gear, so you're going to see a lot of that. I'll even talk about some of the little mistakes that we made, maybe filming, and how I might have done things differently if we had a bigger budget or more time, more crew, and nobody's perfect. I'm certainly not perfect, and especially when you're working on passion projects like this, there's little things that you kind of have to let slide sometimes. So we'll talk about some of those things. So let's go ahead and jump into this commercial. So the first scene that I want to talk about here is a scene where we've got a couple here in the kitchen, kind of enjoying a glass of wine, making dinner together, kind of just a fun little scene. Now, when we're approaching a scene like this, the first consideration is always going to be the window. Like I mentioned, in this shoot, we are working a lot with natural light that's already available, and then augmenting that light with the lights that we have available to us, because on a passion project like this, where it's a little bit scrappy, we have to be able to work quickly, we have to be able to move fast, and that's going to help us to do that. So our first consideration is this window. Obviously, we've got a lot of light coming through that window, so we've got our exposure pulled down to make sure that the window isn't clipping. So as you can see here, we've still got a little bit of detail left in the window there, in between these sheer curtains that we put up, but we've got the curtains there kind of softening and diffusing the light a little bit more. We want to put up those curtains so that you can't actually see outside the window, which might be a little bit distracting, but in this case, it's helping to just kind of soften that light, help the light come through the kitchen. If we didn't have these sheer curtains up, we'd probably end up with a scene that was too high key, lots of light going on, lots of light bouncing around off the walls, and we want to kind of bring that level down so that we get a little bit more moody, contrasty look. So as you notice on our talent over here, we're getting this really nice contrast. You look at his face here. So we've got contrast over on this side. We've got light over on this side. Same thing with our female talent here. The light is on the other side of her. We're kind of silhouetting her against the window there, which is giving us that nice moody contrasty look that we want. We're also getting a really nice reflection here on the countertop from the window, and so I like a lot of that as well. Now, because the window is our main source of light, we want to be motivating window light for our lighting setup for the scene, and the window's not giving us exactly the light that we want, and so we actually do have over here an aperture 120D with a light dome on it, balanced to daylight, so about 5600, 6000 Kelvin, matching that color of the light coming through the window. And that's what's giving us this little nice reverse key light on our talent. So notice that we're getting that reverse key look. We're lighting from the back side, short lighting, narrow lighting, upstage lighting, whatever you want to call it, lighting from the back side, and we're shooting into the shadows. So we've got these really nice shadows on this side of his face, which is giving us that contrast. Now you notice, if you pay attention to where the light is breaking, and if you watch my other videos, I always talk about this, having the light break on this corner of the face. So if you look at the human face, let's just draw one over here. We got two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. This is the front part of the face, right? And then there's a back part of the face, or the side part of the face, and then there's this side where the ears are, right there. So if you split the face into three sides, you want to have the light breaking. If you're shooting camera on this side, you want your shadow on this side, and you want your light breaking right on that corner of the face. That's what gives you that nice little triangle right here on the cheek that's flattering, and gives you your light and your contrast there. So you can see that that's happening here with our talent. If we kind of clear all this out. So you can see that's happening here with our talent, where we've got that light, we've got that nice little light on his cheek there. We're getting enough light on him so that we can see what's going on in his face, but we still have that nice contrast. This is adding a lot of depth, a lot of three-dimensionality to his face, and making it look really, really nice. The only other thing that's happening here in this scene is that we've got the oven light on over here. So if you notice, there's a little bit of light coming onto this steam. We've got a pot on the stove here, and the stove is just turned all the way up with water boiling inside of it, to giving us this little steam kind of coming out of it, which is really nice. If we cut to the close-up shot of the guy working on dinner over this pot, you can see a little bit more of that steam happening. We've got light reflecting off of it. That same light is right here now on the back side of his face. And then we've got a little bit of key kind of hitting him on the front of his face just from this practical oven light in the background. So you can kind of see that happening on his face here. Really interesting. We're kind of keeping those shadows, keeping that low level for his face, but still really beautiful. So that's it for this setup. All we've got is the main key light, we've got the window, and we've got a practical on in the background, kind of helping liven up the scene a little bit. In a scene like this, normally we would be using negative fill over here on this side to help us create this shadow on our talent. However, in this space, we didn't actually need it this time because there's no wall over here on the right. This kitchen actually opens up into the rest of the house and goes all the way to the other end of the house, which means we didn't have light bouncing back towards our talent again, and it ended up being dark enough as is. So we just left it the way it was. Moving on to our next scene, we've got a nice little scene of some teenage girls having a little get together at night, playing some games, hanging out together. And this one's kind of an interesting one. Basically what we're doing here is we've got our main key light. Well, we've got our windows first of all. So just like the kitchen scene, we're bringing our exposure down, making sure that our windows aren't blowing out. These sheer curtains that are on the windows, we didn't actually add those. Those were already there on set in the location, which is really nice. We didn't have to take the time to do that. But we've got the level on those windows really nice. As you can tell, the sun is definitely over here on this side. Had we had a bigger budget or more time, more crew, we could have taken time to dim that down, maybe net it or scrim it so that the light isn't quite so harsh and it matches this one a little bit better. But again, working very fast, working with what we have available. We didn't have time to do that. And so the lights, the windows are different levels, but you can just tell that the sun is over on this side of the house, which is not that big of a deal. Obviously, we've got a lamp here in the background that we're turning on for practicals. Those practicals will add depth to the background. So always be thinking about, where you can put a practical in the background to help kind of motivate light happening in the scene. And our main key light for these girls is actually, again, an aperture 120D up here just right from above them. So the reason that we've got the light from above is because we want to motivate the light. Motivating your light means thinking about your scene and where light would naturally be coming from. So in this situation, the light would naturally be coming from the chandelier above the coffee table, which is where it was. And so we had a chandelier up there. What we did is we took our aperture 120D with the light dome on it, shoved it right next to the chandelier, and had it pointing not straight down, but kind of at a 45-degree angle coming down on our talent. Now, this is a little bit interesting because, as you can see here, we're not actually reverse keying our talent, which is what I normally would do. And you guys are probably like, Eric, why are you not reverse keying the talent? Well, this is kind of one of those situations where you have to balance whether you're going to do the lighting the way you want or the way that makes the most sense in the scene. And so what made the most sense in the scene is for the light to be coming from above. Now, even though we're not lighting our talent from the back, which would be a little bit awkward if you could imagine, the light hitting this side and then this side all being in shadow, wouldn't really make sense for the scene. Even though we're not reverse lighting them, we are lighting them from above. And because we're lighting them from above, we're still getting this really nice shadow underneath their chins, okay? So in all these areas. So we're getting plenty of contrast in the scene as is. So if you can't reverse light your scene, if you can't narrow light, if you can't put the light on the back side, at least at the minimum, always be thinking about how you can make your light directional. Maybe it's from above, maybe it's directly from the side. Because what matters is not that the light is necessarily behind your subject, but what matters more is that you're getting light and shadow. Because those little pockets of light here mixed with shadow there and light and shadow, light, that's what's going to create the contrast. It's going to create the depth, three-dimensionality to the face that makes it look flattering and interesting. So that's kind of what's happening on this scene. Moving on to the next one, we have a scene with a couple here dancing in a barn. And again, some interesting things going on here. We've got very similar setup. We've got our aperture 120D up here above our talent. Again, it's a barn. Naturally, the light would be coming from above, okay? So we've got the light dome on it. We've got some nice soft diffused light coming down on them. You can see where that's hitting our talent right here. And again, creating that contrast. So we've got the light over here, and then on the bottom side, we've got the shadow. Same thing on her, light, shadow. That contrast, that light and shadow back and forth all the time is what creates really interesting images. So be paying attention to that. Notice that the background is also doing the same thing. We've created these little pockets of light and shadow throughout the background. So we've got light back here, we've got shadow right here, light right here, shadow over here, creating that kind of checkerboard effect. Okay. This light here on the left is a quasar. So quasar science tubes, just a couple that I have. We've got it set to a very warm color temperature, obviously. In fact, you can actually see the quasar right there, and you can see the C-stand that it's sitting on. Again, if this were a bigger budget shoot, if we had more time, more crew, we'd probably spend a lot more time trying to hide those things. But in an industrial location like this, where sometimes you can get away with just having a C-stand in the background. Maybe a keen eye would notice it, but for most people that are going to be watching this, it's not going to be such a big deal. In this situation, we've got it there, but again, if we had a bigger budget, we'd probably spend more time trying to hide that. In the background here, over on this side, this is where we actually have another quasar. So there's a little room over here, if you can see it, and there's a light just inside there pointing straight at this background. So we've got this really cool corrugated metal wall back here, door back here. And so we're letting the light kind of reflect off of that. What this is doing is just, again, creating that pocket of light, those little pockets of light here and there mixed with shadows, creating that checkerboard effect, which is creating interest in the scene. Also, it's adding a lot of depth to the scene. So the fact that we're able to see back into the background gives a lot of depth. If this was just all black in the background, it would feel very flat. But what this light is doing is actually opening up the background and showing us that there's more to the space. We've got, this background, we've got this other room over here, which is creating a lot more space and depth in the scene. Now, the only other thing happening in the scene, obviously, is the string lights that are kind of running through the scene right here. And those actually, we had planned to put up string lights in this scene because it's a date night. It made sense for the scene. It would look interesting. They already had little Christmas lights up in there. And so we used the ones that they had available, and they looked great and matched our colors to those lights, and everything came out looking just great. And here's the last scene that we're going to talk about in this video. This is a scene of kid coming home late. Mom is a little bit upset that he didn't come home on time, and so we're kind of showing both angles of that. The way we got this lit, his main key light, as you can see right here, again, is that aperture 120D. We use that light extensively on this shoot. Lighting his key there. It's also lighting this wall here. In fact, you can actually see the reflection of it right here in the windows. That's a little goof right there. Again, sharing some of the mistakes that we made and maybe things we probably would have been looking for if we weren't working so fast on this. But again, there's that light right there. We've got that kind of keying him. You can see that on the front of him here. Notice, again, reverse keying. We're on the side of him. We're creating that contrast. So we've got light on this side of his face, dark on this side of his face, making things really interesting. Same thing with Mom over here. We've got light, again, coming from the reverse key side. This is coming from just a lamp, a practical lamp, which I'll show you in the next shot, that was sitting next to her. So it's just kind of lighting that side of her, and then we're putting her in dark. Again, like I was talking about, pockets of light. So we've got, this pocket of light over here. This is mainly dark. A little bit of light on him there, mainly dark. Light. We've got dark on Mom here, and then light again. So creating those pockets is what's giving us interest across the scene. Now on him, we've got obviously this kind of kicker light happening on his face here. Sorry, this is getting a little messy. That is coming from a quasar tube, again, just outside of frame, outside. And then that's also where all of this window light is coming from. So that's kind of motivating a street lamp or a porch light, maybe even moonlight, whatever it is, some sort of light that is coming from outside and hitting him as he's walking in the door. You can see it over here on the blinds as well. Okay. So now if we move over to the next scene, now you can see the reverse shot of that. So this was a situation where we had to move all of the lights. So we shot the first scene, then moved all of the lights and relit it for this second scene. And we've got kind of the same thing going on. So you notice that we're looking over his shoulder here. We've got a little bit of light on him. Okay, so this is just light kind of bouncing, coming through the window or through the door from that quasar. At this point, though, we don't want hard light. We don't want to distract from the main focal point of this image, which is Mom over here, right? So what we're doing is we've got that quasar actually pointed up at the ceiling. There's a little ceiling over the front porch. We've got it pointed up at the ceiling. We're letting it bounce down and then just getting a little bit of level there so that you can see his shoulder so it's not completely black. Now with Mom over here, obviously we've got a nice little practical lamp in the background. Again, always using those to add interest, to motivate our light. And then our main light source on Mom is, again, that aperture 120D, hiding just just over here, just outside frame, actually just behind his shoulder so that you can't see it. We've got a nice soft light. You can see it hitting these shelves, hitting this wall, the couch, and then hitting mom. Again, like we talked about earlier, the light is breaking right on that far corner of the face. So we've got nice light on this side, nice shadow on this side. Really nice, really flattering, good contrast. That is what you want. So with the light hitting her from this side, we've placed the practical right here because that's helping motivate the light on her face. If that practical weren't there, it would feel a little bit awkward, like where is that light actually coming from that's hitting her face? And so by placing the practical there, even though it doesn't actually make sense that that practical is lighting her face since it's behind her, it still helps kind of motivate that light, make it feel a little bit more natural on her. And then the last thing that's happening in here is we've got this little light in the background. So this is another quasar that we threw all the way down the hall. So this is a hallway that goes way, way back. If we didn't have this quasar in here, we would just have pitch black back here, which again would not look good, would not add to the depth in the scene. We want that depth. So we've got a quasar back there. It's actually pointing the other direction, bouncing off of a wall way back in the background, and then that light is kind of flooding back in. That is also balanced at a cooler color temperature, which is kind of helping motivate maybe another street light outside or another porch light or maybe some moonlight coming in over there. Just adding a little bit of texture on that background. Again, always creating those little pockets of light. Always thinking about that. We've got light over here, dark here, light here, and then again, all the way across the frame, dark, light, dark, okay? So creating that checkerboard effect, getting things looking nice, and that's how we did this scene. So there you go. There's a quick breakdown of a few of the scenes that we shot and how we did them, how we worked with the lights and made it happen. If you guys want to watch the full video, I'll put a link to it down in the description below so you can watch. Also, if you're interested in learning more about lighting and how we approach these kind of scenes, how to think like a filmmaker, how to think about lighting when you're approaching the scenes that you're shooting, I do want to invite you to check out the Lighting Secrets course, which I'll put a link to in the description down below. It's a full masterclass on everything you need to know about lighting and my methodology for how I approach a scene, how I light the scenes that I'm doing, all built into one really simple, easy to follow course, and you can check it out down below. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope that was helpful, and we'll see you on the next video.